us right at that end point. We're feeling like a little squished for time, so we want to slide in here. The two books that you have the nuts and bolts, and you have the First Writers Workshop book. They're just the first two in a series. There is this complete collection that will take you through an entire year with Lucy Falcons if you want to follow that. They're available in the library, and this is what I would say. It's another one of those goals. It's another one of those pieces. Really, before you need to worry about how I'm going to do each month and each unit of study, just develop your writer's workshop. When you have that, and you're feeling really good about that, then say, okay, I'm gonna tighten it up here a little bit. I'm gonna bring it together. I'm gonna try and get in a unit of study. I'm gonna make sure I do a poetry unit in April. It's a process. Like, don't think, well, I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna do this, because, well, if you can do it, amen. But
Kids will probably change it for you, though.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that pulls us back into the book, and that idea on that first page of chapter 3, at the bottom, and as teachers, we provide either the ongoing structures or the changing units, but oftentimes not both. It's really about a balance, and then the balance, the central part of that balance is that child-driven, child-centered approach that you really want to take with reading. Anything that jumped out at anybody, we're kind of pushing around a few things, but other thoughts, ideas that jumped out?
The benefits of doing it with someone, talks about, using your team time and stuff.
If you can get somebody to buy into this with you on your teaching team, so much better, so much better.
Everyone brings great strengths.
Yeah, and different. I view things as frightening, and she might think, and we'll be there because it goes so well for her. The other piece that we wanted to point out, in that dear kindergarten teacher, and of course it's kindergarten teacher, and again I'm going to say it's everybody in this room right now because our kids don't have this foundation. Not all, some do, but many of our kids don't have this foundation in writing, so we're all starting in a very similar spot. And in that second paragraph, it talks about how your kids will be the talk of the town when they enter first grade or second or third with the strengths that no one dreamt were possible. And it's so true. We have a few stories. One was my classroom aide, and she has commented the past 2 years, she's really, if I'm not able to see what these children are doing, because I would never believe it. You don't believe it until you see it. And then also from one of our first grade teachers who jotted an email to Allie and I and said that never in all 3 years of teaching, and that was after we had implemented our first year, she said she has never had writers like this. Never, she's never experienced it in her career. But our highest compliment came when Kelly Boswell was at the school, and it was a very exciting time for Allie and I because she was going to do her model lesson in the first grade. And of course, those were the kids that we taught in kindergarten, and you don't often get to go and see what your kids are doing as a follow-up. And she did her lesson and sent them off, and they were writing for just a minute or two, and she kind of brushed by us, and she goes, I travel the country. She goes, I don't see first grade kids write like this. That was a testament to what we had done with them in kindergarten. So the possibilities are so huge. Now, if those little bloomers get that same nudge in first grade and that same nudge, or excuse me, in first and second, what have you got at the end? Can we even dream it? Can we even think what it could possibly be if they get those opportunities year after year? So it pays off. It pays off. It's not just in our heads. Because you question that. You think, oh, I think they're grand. But maybe the rest of the world doesn't think so.
And one thing that I found too is never to compare your kids' writings to someone else's, because there'll be times where Julie's kids will do something and I'm like, how come? What did I do? What did I do wrong for my
It happens
kids not
both
to
ways.
get like that?
It happens both
Right.
ways. Yeah.
And then we always have to remember we have different kids. You know, we can't compare. We can't do that. You can't do that to your kids. It's not fair to your kids to do that. It's not fair to you to do that. But I always have to remind myself of that all the time. I mean, it's good to have that, to nudge each other along and to even tell the kids, look what these kindergartners are doing, boys and girls. Do you think we can do something like this? I mean, that's great too, but never to just say, my kids aren't there, man. And right after page 21, I know some of you were kind of browsing through, that is just where Julie was talking about those other books. Lucy kind of laid out, it's just how she kind of recommends how to do it. And everyone has their own different stuff, but that's what the next few pages are. And we actually didn't know that that whole set existed until like a couple weeks ago, because we were like, what are authors as mentors? And then we got that from an old teaching partner at Wilmore, and then we thought, oh, there's a whole chunk of books. That makes sense now.
Yeah, we were living in a fog.
Yeah.
Oh well. Live and learn, right?
Yes. All right.
So now I just want to wrap up quickly and give you a job for the. All right. First thing was somebody had asked about the definition of writer's workshop because we just are kind of talking about it and throwing it out there. So we've taken in just some ideas today. We haven't really taken it into the lessons and into some of the depths that it can go. Writer's workshop, as we move through, what you're going to see is a very structured time within your day that you offer some very intentional teaching and modeling for your kids so that they can be, and especially in our case in these early grades, so we can establish them as writers. So they have that daily opportunity to practice and see good writing and share and talk about it. It's really what it is. But there are components to it that definitely bump it up and make it stronger and make it better. And we'll explore those things more in depth tomorrow as we get into how to set your room and your tools and your time.
Just like we tell our kids what it is and what it isn't, I can tell you what it's not. It's not first year, first grade. It's not teaching them any lesson and then sending them off to do their daily 5 writing while you work with small group.
But there is a place for daily 5.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and that's, because of the time factor.
Yes.
And I've never liked the excuse of the time, but we're all crunched for it. And that was my biggest, first year, first grade. I did not like myself very much because I'm very passionate about writing. I always have been. Kids are typically, they're pretty perceptive, but I get them started on a writing so I can do those beginning of year assessments in week 3, whatever. And I'm like, as they were all coming to me with, they wanted to show me, it was very valid, they were all engaged, but I needed to assess. And I'm like shushing them, I'm like,
I know.
Yeah, that was,
Yes, and it's not filling in the blanks, and it's not throwing out the prompt, and it's not write 2 sentences and you're done. There are so many things that it's not. It's painful.
So I guess kind of for our clarity, we're wondering, is there anything that we've talked about today that we haven't really been clear on, or we're going to dive really deep into the components and all of that tomorrow and in the next coming days, but is there anything that you really, really need from us, I guess, that you might feel like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get that? And if you don't want to say it out loud, you can write on a sticky note and give it to us too, that's fine. You don't have to say it now if you don't want to, but just for us, because we want this class to be something where at the end of the week you're going to walk away and you're going to know, okay, this is how I'm going to start. I feel very comfortable with this, and we just want to make sure that you feel that way. And if you're not going to, then we need to know that so that we can change that.
Read you.
Yeah. Could we see a sample schedule of what your day looks like? Was there any chance you could share just how it runs?
You fit everything in.
How you fit
Yeah.
everything in?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yep. I'll write that down.
I just have a general question about, like when you guys write and draw up here. You said that the first time, you said that you only do the squigglies and everything the first time.
That's the only time I ever
That's the only time you ever do it?
write like that.
And then, are all of these, like whenever you have them up here, are all of these the mini lessons that you're teaching? So how many mini lessons a day? Just one? Okay, so it's not like, okay, mini lesson, break up, mini lesson, okay. So it's just one mini lesson and then they go off and they do their writer's workshop.
And then there's more to it.
Okay,
Break
Well,
it down.
okay, okay. So it's kinda, we'll go
Yeah.
over structure tomorrow. Okay.
Structure and organization too, because I've,
Yes.
the first 2 years back, I've two different systems, and I'm not happy with them either.
Yeah, okay.
And I found a new folder on Pinterest, I made one, and I seem to
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
I made one to see, and then like, just this whole structure, and then like if kids don't finish, K1 is that age where, they don't really know to go back, and I'm not done with this one, you know what I mean, just that whole.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yep, yeah, we'll go there.
All right.
Good. Yeah. That means that we're heading in the right direction, that's great.
It's hard not to just like say, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. It's, you just have to like, pull back the process.
Yeah, we want 25 mini lessons today.
And that's fun, that's probably like the best part to do.
So I don't know that we really touched,
A whole lot of
this
these
is,
today.
this is up and coming, writer's workshop. Yeah, no, there were still some really strong elements in there.
We just want to visit this at the beginning every day and at the end of every day. And like we said, today we didn't cover on a lot of these, but tomorrow we're going to really start diving into a lot of these components. So, okay. And we do kind of have an assignment for you, I guess, tonight. Tomorrow we are going to be diving and looking into piece by piece, chapter 4, and also chapter 5. Chapter 4, just so I said piece by piece, every time you see one of the big headings, we're gonna take that section by section. So we're gonna talk about the room arrangements in a whole section. We're gonna talk about materials and organization in a whole section. We're gonna talk about scheduling in a whole section. And so, and maybe if you have ideas of things that work for you too as you're reading some of that tonight, bring that tomorrow, because we're not saying that just because it's the way we do it that it's right, because it hasn't always worked. So if you have something that has really worked for you, bring that, or something that someone else has used, bring that too. And then chapter 5 is a lot about mini lessons, and that's really exciting. We're gonna dive into those 2 things tomorrow. So that's your assignment. And I mean, we trust you. We know that you guys want to learn this, but
It's
you
an
will
easy
read
read
it
anyway.
however you want to.
It
It's
is.
easy read.
And we're gonna get an email about signing up for credit.
Yeah,
It's
you
all
are.
video.
Yes, I will send it to you.
Electronic, huh?
Yes.
Can I ask a really stupid question? Which?
There's no
chapter?
such thing as
4 or 5, which book?
Oh, I'm sorry, this one.
This one, okay.
Yes, and the other book, the launching, we're not going to give you necessarily any reading instruction out of there, I guess, or any assignments out of there, but that's something that you should just kind of peruse. I mean, it is a whole book full of mini lessons, especially that launching is just how you start your year. So if you're really thinking, I just don't understand how this is gonna look, just start going through there, listen to her language, just read through it. And my first year, I did not. Do you have your book? Your launching, I wrote it. I only read like the lesson itself. I didn't read all of these great little side notes. Read them because they're so fantastic. And then last year I read them and I went, oh man, my poor kids, my first year, I could have given so much more. But, so,
It is that.
yeah. So chapter 4 and chapter 5, and bring things if you have some ideas, and yeah, see you guys tomorrow. Okay, thank you guys.
Slid right into it.
So are you like,
Yeah, we went to that. I got it. My favorite bag. What's your thought? Look it up.
yeah, you do.
Because I have to clean out where it is. It's
They already called, right?
Yeah.
have him write about it. Yeah.
Tell us how that goes.
Perception of an emergency for an 8 or 9-year-old.
She was saying that she has to discuss that further now.
That's why I went this morning.
Because this morning it
I
was.
saw Ted Black this one, I went back in yesterday and looked, and I thought it was different.
Yes, I am. And yes, and.
Kind of it is.
Penny called me today. So I said, okay. But, I'll be gone the first hour.
Is your
because
literacy
at 1
academy
o'clock I
class?
have a
I don't
team
know, I
cleaning,
think
you know, the
it's-
6-month checkup that you don't wanna put off. And
I can't read that
I
schedule.
had no idea at the time.
I'm glad you're coming.